She thumps a cane and drinks champagne. She's formidable and judgmental, but we can guarantee that she's a quintessential Lady D, but recognizes great potential. What would Danbury do?
Welcome to What Would Danbury Do? Your guide to Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series from A to V. This episode, we continue our epilogue reading with our favourite mother of corgis, Kate, and consummate boob man, Anthony. Once again, they're facing off in a vicious game of Pall Mall. So grab your favourite mallet and prepare for some truly unsporting behaviour. Don't forget, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Join the conversation using the hashtag WWDDpod.
I was going to say favorite rock movie, but look, I might just lean in and go all the way with like one of my favorite movies, Rampage, which is just...
Is this one of the like big creature things? Is this a big crocodile?
No. There is in fact a giant alligator.
Oh,
but
my apologies. I actually do care about the difference between a crocodile and an alligator. I don't know why I'm acting like I don't.
But because
I was in New Orleans on a bayou tour, and they were like, "These gators big," and I'm like, and they're like looking at me like, "You don't look very impressed." I'm like, "They're bigger. Like crocodiles are bigger in Australia," and they all just like, shut your face.
I went on one of those bayou tours as well, and the guy was like, "Who wants to pat?" And I was a bit too, it's not that I was enthusiastic because I didn't really think that it was going to happen, but I also wasn't opposed to like getting up close with like this massive gator. And it was that was the point at which the guy was like, "I'm going to stop making this joke because clearly if you give that girl half a chance." I just love them. Look, I was a menace on my gator like bayou tour because I also they threw marshmallows in the water to attract them because marshmallows float, so that means that like first it creates a ripple so the gators know that there's something, and it's white and I think like stands out really well, and also it's small and it's cheap and all, like for a variety of reasons they use marshmallows.
Sounds like Captain Nick on my tour did a shit job of explaining why marshmallows were used.
I asked a lot of questions, including, "Are you sure that's good for them though?" And like,
I think that's a valid question.
He looked at me and then he told me they were sugar free, and I was like, I go to him, "I think you're giving the gators diabetes," and and just like I had a
Now I'm sad I didn't go on the gator tour with you. It would have been worth it.
Hi, I'm Adele.
Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Rudi. I've super prepared for tonight. And so I hope we get to my talking points and I don't distract myself. Before I start to take over and direct everything into like the spaces that I want to be talking, what did you guys think of this one?
Still in these did not need to be written, but I thought it was fun. I liked the fighting and the siblings and I thought it was a bit ridiculous that they had made it a yearly tradition that they all had to go back there for that like particular Pall Mall game, but you know, had some Colin, had some Kate, had them like bribing all of their servants so that their servants may actually be able to come out of servitude. So that was nice too, you know.
I was actively annoyed.
So was I.
Like, why? What is wrong with you? Why do you guys not like joy?
This wasn't joy.
It's not. I found it manic. I felt quite. It just was a lot. It was like a lot coming at me, Kate, and I didn't need it.
I agree. Like, I feel like this was all of the worst parts about Kate and Anthony's relationship. and in particular their courtship, all of the worst parts of it amplified and served to you with nothing else as a buffer. So it actually...
And it's extreme fan service, and it just didn't leave a nice taste in my mouth.
See, I think that's the difference between me and the both of you, in that I am super happy to be served to as a fan. Love fan service. Live for it. Terminator 3, the movie everybody hates because it's 100% fan service, I adore. I think it's great. I love the in-joke.
All right. Counterpoint. Rebel Wilson in Pitch Perfect 2. There is too much of her. They need to scale some Rebel Wilson back. Like a small amount is good. Too much is cringy. Done.
Yeah, agreed. Particularly because for me, maybe because we're Australian, like Rebel Wilson wasn't the revelation that she was to the rest of the world. So that wasn't serving me as a fan.
But
Amy
doesn't need a subplot, and neither does Pall Mall. Did I say that right?
Pall Mall.
Yeah, Pall Mall.
Fan service, good. Fat Amy fan service, bad. That's where my fan service line is. Terminator 3 and Pall Mall games are up here, and then Fat Amy subplot lines are down here. It's a spectrum of fan service.
Spectrum of shit.
Oh. See, I think you're just not willing to like lean into being served, but that's all.
This almost undid my happy ending for the Viscount Who Loved Me. Like, this almost ruined it as, because I kept reading it being like, and maybe this is because I come into romance like expecting a certain thing, or I came into this book expecting a certain thing. And it's that, like, you know, in those antagonist romances or like hate to love romances where like by the end they've kind of balanced each other out because they've met halfway, like each of them have given a little bit of ground. They've met halfway. And so they're different people. This was like them going back to, like, they are 15 years into their marriage and they've gone back to being like not just regressed. The same people, but like regressed. And it was so antagonistic.
Nope. This is the thing. This is the reason why. 15 years of marriage. It's exactly why they're playing this game. Because they have been married for 15 years.
They're bored.
No, look, they're not necessarily bored, but let's face it, after 15 years, like, the spark dims for every relationship and they love competing with each other. And I'm going to bet that at the end of this epilogue, they go back to the bedroom and have the best sex that they have all year because of this Pall Mall game.
I have never felt so young and naive as having you tell me that this is what 15 years of marriage looks like.
I'm just saying, you go looking for the spark, and when you find something that works, you lean into it.
I always think of myself as like super pragmatic about relationships and the way that they like continue. And, you know, because like my parents have been together for decades and, you know, and I've grown up around like a lot of couples actually that have been together for years. So I've had it modeled in real life. And I know about like the sniping and the griping and the like getting on each other's nerves. I know that that's what happens, but somehow I have fallen into the trap of being like, but not in my books, please.
Well, you never see it in romance novels. That's the problem, because the novel always ends before they fall into comfortable patterns or before they like start looking for nostalgic things that will bring them back to that part of their relationship.
And also because when you do see your old fave couples in a book, it's like it's a cameo, so it's like their best version of themselves or a surface version of them. So it's
or they're
like,
in public.
Yeah. So okay, maybe I have to rethink this. but
You do. I'm sorry.
I still don't have to like it though.
Well, I refuse to because it just keeps going and going and going, and I just got more and more annoyed. It's like, Anthony's a boob man. Check. Ultra competitiveness. Check. I'm like, Jesus.
So you've half cracked open the door that I wanted to walk through. So I'm going to take this moment. I'm going to fucking run. Ready? When we first talked about the Viscount Who Loved Me, Kate, you mentioned, like, you labelled Anthony a boob man. And in all of my reads, I had not really noticed that, but there is no way of avoiding it in this. It is very front and centre. But then I was listening to a kind of old now episode of Womance podcast. In Ep 77, Morgan has this theory about boobs versus, like, boob men versus butt men being, like, really some kind of, like, metaphor for whether you have a life or a death imperative. You can critique it as much as you want, because Isabeau sure as fuck did. But her basis was
boobs give you life and
boobs excrete life. And yes,
literally.
I think that Anthony should actually be a butt man because he's death-centric. Unless we say that the reason, like, he was always life imperative all along and he just didn't know how to, like, engage properly. But then I also started thinking about his absolute obsession with the death, like with the mallet of death. And I was like, no, I'm right. He always should have been a butt man. Anyway, discuss.
I'm really worried because my husband is an ass guy and now I'm deeply concerned.
I don't think it's a negative thing necessarily. Like, it's not it's not like, you know how, like, some people are savers and some people are spenders. Like, I think that's, like, it's just how you approach life. Like, are you thinking about, like, are you cautious or are you, like, caution to the wind? Like, I think that is kind of the dichotomy that comes, like, that Morgan was trying to explain. And there's a part of me that really hopes she never listens to this because I might have completely butchered it.
I mean, I'm very interested in this. I'm very intrigued. I'm especially intrigued with the whole Anthony thinking that he was a death guy when it turns out he's actually a life guy, as is evidenced by his obsession with boobs.
So this is the note that I apparently wrote while reading the book. But also, is their obsessive fighting over the mallet of death a metaphor for a couple negotiating anal sex?
Wow.
Well, you think they would have negotiated that a long time ago.
I mean, you could lean into that, because if you look at the ass being a death imperative, or at least not a life imperative, because anal sex is never going to lead to new life, right?
Exactly.
Huh. I feel like from now on, going forward, we have to evaluate every single one of the Bridgerton men to determine whether they have a life and or death imperative. You push the door open, and now it can't be shut.
Kicked it open.
Yeah.
Ready to talk about boobs and butts. Anyway,
Look, okay, here's the thing that I did think while I was reading all about this black mallet of death, was there was a certain level of fetishization of it. And I did briefly wonder if the black mallet of death had ever found its way into the bedroom.
That's why I wondered whether
it
was like that's why my brain went to, is this them negotiating anal sex?
Again, married for 15 years, whatever it takes to.
Well, that actually, and that was also part of my thinking. I was like, let's pretend for a second that, like, that no Victorian couple was ever, like, kinky straight off the bat. Like, let's pretend that they were actually super straight-laced all the time and forever. 15 years with the same person where, like, you're fairly open sexually, like, surely it's a conversation that could be had, even if it's coded in an argument about a mallet of death / butt imperatives.
And also, let's be honest, Anthony does act like he has something up his ass a lot of the time.
Well,
Oh,
I was going to ask, are we just not entertaining the idea that potentially it was pegging?
look, I hadn't up until this very point, but now, you know, look,
because when I said like negotiate, like I solidly meant negotiating. Like, I didn't necessarily mean that it would be Kate receiving.
I mean, it could be both, really.
It really could be.
You know, they could be negotiating whose turn it was.
Exactly. But yeah, it was very much like, oh, it's...
It only gets gross when you think about people handle that every year. That's like different family members. And
I don't think it's the actual mallet. It's a metaphor. It's not the actual... It's why it was so important to be the one who had possession of it, and why it was so...
I went straight literal.
Yeah, I look, I'm leaning into literal as well.
I think that's a little bit too wild for those two.
I mean, 15 years, maybe in like 20 years, maybe then we can get literal. If she does the third epilogues, it's totally a pegging scene with the black mallet. Julia Quinn, call me.
I'm trying to have an academic discussion about imperatives and butt sex, and you got to go there.
Dollars to Donuts, there's fic out there about it. If there's not, there will be by tomorrow.
Adele, do you want to talk through, like, briefly what this Pall Mall game actually was?
So the Pall Mall game is what Quinn refers to in the preface to this epilogue as the thing that she received the most fan feedback about. And it's this very farcical game in the grounds of their country ancestral home. And it's something that the Bridgerton children have played for many, many, many years and are known to be horrifically competitive to the degree of purposely probably injuring each other. And it's when Kate and Anthony fell in love, I guess they say in the epilogue. I don't know if I agree with that statement, though. I was
going to say, you sound so, like, unenthusiastic as you explain all this. It's like you hate it.
I was thinking, Rudi, you put me on the spot.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
You put me on the spot. I was trying to sound like cover all the bases. You could basically hear me ticking off things.
I don't think they fell in love, but I think they definitely got under each other's skin at the Pall Mall game.
This second epilogue tries to tell us that it is where they both fell in love with each other. I was like, that's...
She does love some retconning.
So... That's very true. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely when their foreplay started.
Yeah. This game, like, this is kind of a restaging of the game that we see in The Viscount Who Loved Me. It's all the same players. There is, like... but this time Penelope is there as a spectator only because, of course, we can't actually... Even though we are actually seeing a brand new game, we can't actually, like, change anything about the initial game. Even right down to the fact that, like, Kate was losing and then she decided to give up on being a loser and start winning by being disruptive and, like, actually just ruining Anthony's chance to win.
Which I did love.
Yeah. We also still had, like, the same setup of, like, an impossible course that they have to navigate through. Kate's sister is there again. Like, it just... Yeah. So that's kind of what you get.
The addition of Edwina is so lovely because she just doesn't give a shit. She's not competitive. She's quite touched that they gave her blue, which is because they can't be bothered fighting over the blue because it's not worth the effort. And it's all just so quaint and lovely, and so Edwina. I think it's lovely. And that the fact that Edwina is still there, I think, is a nice tip of the hat to the fact that she was initially who Anthony was going for. So yeah, I just love that. I thought it was really, and Edwina's just such a sweetheart.
I kind of felt like she was a little bit passive aggressive, Blue, how lovely, as in I don't want to be here, please explain to me why I'm here.
Even more if it's passive aggressive. I love a good passag.
Just a little mild, I don't want to be here, I'm going to not say anything about anything.
Shall we do our What the Featheringtons?
Yes. You go first.
Is that because you haven't thought of one yet?
No, I feel like I'm the only one who enjoyed this, so I don't feel like my What the Featherington is valid or has any weight. Because I was like, you know what?
On a positive. This
was fun.
That's okay. Mine is mild. Mine is a very mild What the Featherington. Why is Gregory and Hyacinth not invited? I know why they weren't there originally, because they were at school, or actually Hyacinth wasn't at school, she just was too young. But it just, and Benedict's not there. There's several Bridgerton siblings missing from a house party that presumably they're all at.
Well, I think that actually ties in closely to my What the Featherington, which is somewhere near the very beginning. They're we repeat this game every year with exactly the same players. And I'm it wasn't that important a game to begin with. Why on earth is it so important that it's an annual tradition that only the people that were there the first time round can play? And it has to be exactly the same
because
people
the
who were there.
readers wanted it.
Yeah, that felt, we remember me and my spectrum of fan service and I'm way over here in the love it category. But that I was oh, for heaven's sakes.
I think because I would have liked it more if the players weren't the exact same every year. Maybe if we just happened to have the same players this particular year that we're checking in after 15 years. But maybe in the last maybe in other years there have been other people playing and other spouses are allowed to play. And do they only play one Pall Mall game per house party?
Edwina doesn't want to be there. She just wants to go and read books in her library. Just let her go. It doesn't have to be the same people every year. It wasn't a big enough deal to make it a yearly event.
That struck me. It was a very random game. Simon played for the first time that year, and so did Kate, and so did Edwina. The brand new players. And then yeah.
But Edwina ran as hard as she could from the Bridgertons, so I feel like she shouldn't keep getting dragged back. I can 100% see Violet being no, you guys get one Pall Mall game per house party, and that is it, because I don't like you all coming back bruised and bloody, and you need to get it out of your systems, and then we play nice, happy families. But having this annual thing where everybody has to traipse back to wherever Bridgerton house is, it was, yeah. I'm oh yeah, free Edwina, damn it.
Well, I have two What the Featheringtons. At one point, Penelope lovingly warns him about tripping on a tree root. He yells at her, tells her to shut up, and then says to Colin, you should basically muzzle her. And I'm you're a dick, Anthony. You're a dick. So, yeah, there's that. And also the fact that Anthony paid his son to give his wife the role of first witch.
I didn't read that as having paid him to do that. I read it as the son did that, and then Anthony rewarded him for the decision afterwards.
Oh, okay.
That's what I thought
there
too.
We go. I might have misinterpreted it. Oh.
I thought that,
But
yeah.
Come on, just let it be, Anthony. Just let it be.
The witch thing. So they put on a family play of Macbeth.
Macbeth.
Which, do you remember when we were talking about how there are enough Bridgerton children amongst like all of the cousins and like all the offspring now that they probably would be doing these like fantastical stagings? And I just was so satisfied by that.
But Macbeth?
Yeah, but Macbeth.
Like Macbeth is your choice?
Especially when Henry VIII and the unicorn is right there. I don't remember what it was really called, but it was something like that.
It just feels like a disservice to the Smythe Smiths. It just...
Yeah. That was a missed opportunity there.
So the Anthony and Kate's son cast Kate as the first witch. And it's... I quite enjoyed... If you're going to do a boring play, like, that's... I'm okay with that, like, little kind of dig or joke or whatever we want to call it. Like, I wasn't mad at that. But I do agree with you, Adele. Like, especially if we're only getting one little look. Why can't it be one that I actually liked? Why can't she write something that I like? I'm not above fan service, but I want it to be specifically for me.
Oh God.
As in all things, Rudi, you have to lower your expectations. All right, are we out of What the Featheringtons now?
Yep.
All right, it's time for
What Would Danbury Do?
This is where we imagine that a character from another favorite book has written to the wise old dragon herself, Lady Danbury, to ask for advice. This week, as is fitting, our letter comes from Ryu Mori, one of the heroes of the Enemies to Lovers sports romance, Goalie Interference by Avon Gale and Piper Vaughn. And I just want to put out there that I went specifically looking for Enemies to Lovers sports romance in order to tie it so neatly into the Pall Mall game. And I feel super smug and validated having found a really good one. Dear Lady Danbury, as the only experienced goalie of the Atlanta Venom, the starting goalie spot should have been mine, but the coaches have decided to place me on a tandem schedule with rookie Emmett Armstrong. Sure, he's got talent, but he's brash and bold and bratty, as likely to run his mouth off as he is to protect the goal. Now we're competing for the position of starting goalie of our team's Stanley Cup run, and I should be 100% focused on my career. But I can't keep my mind off his eyes and his body and his bratty mouth. And what I want to do to him doesn't have a thing to do with hockey. Can our love ever survive intense competition?
Yes.
As the resident ice hockey subgenre trash bag, I say yes, because everything is possible with ice hockey romance. Everything.
I know you have such a thing for ice hockey romance. Look, I have such a hard time. I really enjoyed this book. It was really, really well done. But having grown up watching hockey and having like every boy that I knew play hockey and all of the realities of like actual hockey, I'm
not saying my love of ice hockey romance is based on reality. It's based on the Mighty Ducks and Joshua Jackson. And I don't know what it is. I just love ice hockey romance. If it's FF, orgies, whatever, there needs to be a goalie. And I don't know any of the other positions because I don't really care that much. But I just love me some ice hockey. Just love it.
One of the difficult things of feeling like you are the experienced person who's been overlooked for someone who is like, who basically
Sparkling.
has less experience but is more vivacious or whatever, right? Like I don't do sports, so I don't know sport words, but like it is such a hit to the ego, but sometimes you do have to kind of step back and think like, what is the bigger picture? And also like, what am I missing about them and their skills? And what am I not showing in my own? Like, I'm going with like actual like proper advice about how to navigate a situation like this. But also like once, and because like I feel like once you find that, like once you have figured out that space, or like kind of identified that space, maybe is the thing, like then you can kind of evaluate whether your need/want to kiss somebody is actually like something that is worth pursuing, or whether you should put that aside for now, because workplace romances are really tricky to navigate sometimes. There we go. That's my advice for, who is it for? Ryu,
yeah.
Ryu.
Spoiler alert, the need to kiss somebody eventually does win out.
That I'm shocked. That is shocking to me.
I know. I just in case.
I'm excited, but I'm shocked.
In case we have any OH&S people out there who are worried. Sorry. This was a really good one. And I feel like the conflict in it was really well done. Like it was legitimate conflict. And you could see them try.
Play.
Yeah, you could see them try to work through it. But yeah, oof. Well, and I think the thing that worked really nicely for this one is they're playing for the same team. And
well played.
They're both people of color. So I think like there was that level of not the word about looking for competition. There was sort of that level of importance as well in recognizing that hockey being such a white sport, that both of them, so Ryu Mori is Japanese American and Emmett is African American. Both of them had to play hockey sort of on a level of representation that wasn't true of their other teammates as well. So not only were they competing for starting goalie because they wanted to be the best athletes that they could be, but also because they were recognizing that there were other kids out there who looked like them who needed to see that they too could succeed and that they too could follow their dreams. Thank you, Ryu, for writing in.
That's all for this episode of What Would Danbury Do? We'll be back in a fortnight with an offer from a gentleman's second epilogue. In the meantime, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as @BridgertonPod, or send us an email at bridgertonpod@gmail.com, or write us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really love hearing from you. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded land of the Gadigal, Wurundjeri and Bunurong people, and edited by audio producer Rudi Bremer, that's me, on Gadigal country. Thanks for listening, and remember, WWDD.
What Would Danbury Do is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.